What's happening, guys? Michael Corsentino with BehindTheShutter.com and Shutter Magazine with this month's lighting tutorial. As you guys know, if you follow my work and you follow me on this channel, more often than not, I am shooting with strobe. When I'm shooting ambient, I shoot a balance between ambient and strobe. I like having two independent sources of light in order to create whatever mix I'm looking for, and that can be anything from very natural looking with just a little kiss of flash to something more flash heavy and more dramatic looking, or knocking down all the ambient light and making the flash the more dominant source, any number of things. So I like the flexibility that that gives me. However, that said, I realize that not everyone has flash. Sometimes when they're just starting out, perhaps it's not in the budget, or for whatever reason, if you don't own a flash and that's not realistic for you, I don't want you to think that you can't rock some awesome location lighting. So before we get into it, I want to remind you, I want to thank you for tuning in to these videos on a monthly basis. And I want to remind you that if you like what you're seeing here on this channel, to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and do yourself a favor and head over to BehindTheShutter.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to the print and or online edition, where you will find awesome photography education, both creative, business, and technical, delivered to your door every month. So definitely check that out. All right, so what I wanted to share with you this month is 3 easy steps for creating location lighting with inexpensive tools, okay? As we all can agree, flash strobes are not inexpensive, okay? So with that in mind, that not everyone can afford strobe when they're starting out, I wanted to show you how you can work with and control natural light using inexpensive tools to create really great looking portraits. And you're seeing here the result, and I'm gonna walk you step by step through the 3 steps that it takes to create this using inexpensive tools. All right, so let's first of all take a look at the behind the scenes shot. And here you can see our setup, and I'm going to dig into all of the various tools used here. They're basically just 2 tools that you use to create the light. So when you're working with the sun, basically you are beholden to whatever Mother Nature gives you to work with. And oftentimes that's going to be really harsh light, okay? So if you want to minimize that, as I say in the article that I wrote in BehindTheShutter.com, which is the companion to this piece, when the sun is lower in the sky, or which is going to be in the afternoon or in the morning or evening, you're going to have the sun in a lower position in the sky, and that is going to give you a softer quality of light and allow you to create a more directional quality of light based on the position of the sun, obviously. When the sun is directly overhead, typically at noon, you're going to have the harshest light of the day and the most difficult to control, and also a very broad, non-directional light. It is a light that, however, that is going to cast a tremendous amount of deep, dark, unflattering shadows. So if you want to create portraits in that light, which is what I wanted to focus on, I figured, let me pick the worst case scenario and show you how to manage that. You are going to need some tools and techniques in order to do that, and that's what we're going to cover here. Okay, so you can see here that Angel, who by the way, a big shout out to Angel. She is a rural carrier, United States Postal Service rural carrier, and I'm recording this while the coronavirus is spiraling out of control. So I wanted to give a big shout out to all the first responders, essential workers like Postal Service employees, fire department, postal workers, grocery store workers, doctors, all the people who keep the society running. Take some time, give gratitude to those people, because they really help the wheels of society keep going. All right, I'm going to step off my soapbox and get back to the tutorial, but big shout out to all of those people for making our society work. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do here is I'm going to walk you through this and show you what my first step when I get on location is to take an establishing shot. I want to get my exposure dialed in before anyone shows up. Okay, this way, when people show up, I'm ready to rock, and I know kind of what the ballpark is. Now, this exposure, is not set in stone. It will change when I bring in the scrim overhead to diffuse the overhead sun and soften and broaden the light. I may need to open up a little bit on my f-stop, or I may need to adjust my shutter speed to control the amount of ambient light, plus or minus. But this gets me in the ballpark. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is when I get my subject in the picture, I'm going to take that first exposure and see what is happening with the light. And when I get on set, also, I should mention that I talked about this in the article, I also kind of look around, I see where the shadows are falling, where the sun is, what the quality of light is, and I determine what tools and techniques I'm going to need in order to get the quality of light that I want. And I kind of have an idea of that going in. I've researched the weather forecast. I kind of know the time of day and what to expect. And I also have extra tools in my car in case lighting conditions, as they will change unexpectedly. Okay, so you'll want to have some flexibility there. So here you can see how harsh the overhead sunlight is creating light on our subject. It's really unflattering, not what we want, okay? There's nothing, I would say, flattering or pleasing about this light. It's very harsh and not what I would want, and I think not what our clients would want. Okay, so first step is to bring in a diffusion scrim overhead. Now, there are all sorts of scrims that you can get that are very inexpensive. Basically, what I wanted to do is bring this in for you guys at around $100, give or take. So there are, and scrims and diffusers come in, and reflectors come in all shapes and sizes, and fabrications and build qualities and price points, right? And the ones that are pictured here are professional tools, because this is something that I've been doing for many, many years. I prefer these tools because they have rigid internal frames when assembled, which make them a lot easier to work with if wind picks up. However, there are really inexpensive scrims and diffusers that you can pick up for about $50 a piece. Lastolite makes a version of pop-up collapsible flexible diffusers and reflectors that you can use. I'm using the Lastolite tools, but that are more rigid in nature. All right, so let's take a look here at the behind the scenes again. So here you can see the first step is to bring in that diffuser. And let me get a little drawing here. You can see it here. This is the diffuser. And you can see that what it does is it puts our subject, Angel, in open shade. And you can see the difference in the quality of light from the before image, where you have just very harsh light. Now we have a very even light. So what you want, and you're also seeing the reflector, which I'm going to show you how this builds with final images. So this is just a shot of everything in the picture, but just imagine that that reflector was not there. The first step is to bring in the diffuser and see what the quality of light is, and then you determine what you want to add in. I always like to build as I go. Now, you'll also notice the shadow that is cast by the diffuser on the ground. You want to really be careful with where that shadow falls, okay? Because if it can be really obvious and evident that you're using a scrim if you don't. You can also get hot spots on shoulders and hands and things like that, or on the fence. Perhaps you'll see a shadow line cast by this scrim, aka diffuser. So you really want to be careful and look and make sure that the subject and everything else is completely in the shade that you want and is not an obvious technique, okay? As you'll see in the final, you really can't tell that I'm using a diffuser. You can just tell that everything's nicely balanced, okay? Because you can't see any hard lines between shadow and highlight. Everything's just very nice and balanced, okay? So let's take a look at that. So here's what we have when we add in that diffuser. Now, I haven't added in the reflector underneath yet, which we're going to use that later. That's going to add some fill light from underneath. It's going to fill in shadows under the chin and the eye sockets. It's going to give some nice catch lights in the eyes and just give us a more specular, contrasty, open, airy kind of feeling to the light. But this is our first step, okay? After we do our initial, exposure, just to kind of assess the light and get us into the ballpark. So here's our before and after. Here's without any diffusion, and here's with diffusion. So you can see a really dramatic difference between the two. All right, night and day. And even without anything additional, the shot on the right is far more pleasing than the shot on the left. I think we can all agree. All right, so now is when we are going to add in that reflector right here. Okay, now this is a California Sunbounce Micro Mini, and I should have mentioned also that the scrim, which we talked about before, is a Last-A-Light 3x3 scrim. I forget their exact name for it, but you can find it if you look on any of the popular retailer sites just by typing that in. So the Sunbounce Micro Mini is another one of those tools that I like because it has a rigid frame and it's much easier to work with if the wind kicks up. That said, you can use any reflector that you want. The main thing is that you place it below the subject, below the in this case, the key light, which is going to be the sun and the diffuser, so that you're bouncing light back up into the model, okay? And that is going to open up underneath the chin and also in the eye sockets, okay? My drawing is destroying this image, but you get the point. Now, these reflectors, typical reflectors, most of them come in a variety of fabric choices. They come in white, they come in silver, and they come in gold, and many variations thereof. Some are striped, combinations of both, etc. So you can kind of really modulate the tone and contrast level and the amount of illumination that you're getting. This was just standard white or silver, and I ended up using silver because it gave me more intensity and more contrast. I tried the white. I really wasn't getting enough punch out of it, so I used the silver, and that's why you're seeing the white underneath here. Okay, so let's look at what it looks like when we add that reflector in. So, big difference, right? And full disclosure, there's a little bit of dodging here in post, and the color grade. All of my post-processing was done in Capture One Pro 20. A little bit of subtle dodging just to open things up a little bit further, just full disclosure. But there is a big difference adding in that reflector, and you can see it's added in a little subtle catch light in Angel's eyes. All right, so let's take a look at the before and after. There we go. So with the diffuser and then with the addition of the reflector underneath. Now this lighting arrangement that we're looking at here is known as clamshell lighting. Okay, it's an over and under position where you've got a key light above and a fill light underneath, and that's essentially what we have here. It's known as clamshell lighting. It does wonders in the studio or on location, as you can see in this situation. All right, so here are our two finals. And again, really easy technique to give you professional results on location with ambient light, with inexpensive tools, really quickly, really easily. All right, so that's going to wrap up our tutorial for this month. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Go out and try these techniques. Tag me on Facebook, show me what you're doing, and I will see you again next month here at BehindTheShutter.com and Shutter Magazine. Take care, guys.